welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis. Today is 14th of April and this video is brought to you by LawSikho. Now, as far as the agenda for today is concerned, at the very outset, we're going to have an understanding of some of the important national as well as international news updates. This is going to be followed by two legal news updates, and at the very end, we have an editorial to discuss, the title of which is Atiq Ahmed's son killed, what Apex Court and NHRC have said on encounter killings. So essentially, here in this particular editorial, we're going to have an understanding of the guidelines that the Honorable Supreme Court as well as the NHRC, which is the National Human Rights Commission, they have laid down in the past on encounter killings. And this discussion, it is going to be centered around the recent encounter that has taken place allegedly in the state of UP. So with this, let's start with the TNF for today. The first update in the national news segment, it is with respect to the signing of an agreement or to be signed between the countries of Nepal and India for the purpose of facilitating cross-border digital payments. So see, India and Nepal, they're all set to sign an agreement for cross-border digital payments using e-wallets. This is expected to boost trade and tourism by eliminating currency hassles. The accord, it is going to allow Indian tourists in Nepal to make digital payments using Indian e-wallets like Bharat Pay, Phone Pay, Google Pay and Paytm. It is expected to be signed during Nepali Prime Minister's visit to India. Next, we have an update with respect to the change of logo of SEBI. So the Securities and Exchange Board of India, it has unveiled its new logo on the occasion of the regulator's 35th Foundation Day. As far as the history of SEBI is concerned, it was established in the year 1988 on 12th of April under the Ministry of Finance. However, the body was granted statutory powers only in the year 1992, and it has been functioning as a quasi-judicial body. Moving on, this is with respect to the Asian Hockey Men's Championship. So after a gap of around 15 years, Chennai is now all set to host the Asian Hockey Men's Championship this year. The state government would extend financial assistance for hosting the event. Moving on, this is with respect to Kolkata Metro making a landmark historical moment. So in a first for the country, Kolkata Metro, it touched a milestone on Wednesday by running through the tunnel under the Hooghly River. The metro rack undertook its maiden journey from Howrah Maidan to Esplanade only with officials and engineers on board. Moving on, this update is in the segment of defense for today. So for 10 days over Greece and the Mediterranean Sea, the Greek and Indian Air Force is going to conduct joint training exercises. This is going to happen in the context of the annual Greek exercise. According to Bulgarian army or military, the exercise is being conducted under the leadership of the Greek Air Force and the Greek Air Tactics Center for the Ministry of Defense. This update is coming from the state of Chhattisgarh. So the Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel, he has announced the Mukhyamantri Adivasi Parab Samman Nidhi Yojana in the state. So under the scheme, as the name also suggests, the government is going to provide grants to panchayats in order to celebrate tribal festivals. The grant amount is of rupees 10,000 and it is going to be granted annually for the purpose of celebrating festivals and fairs which cater to the tribal community. And this has brought us to the international segment for today. First update is coming from South Korea. South Korea is planning to conduct its first launch of the commercial-grade satellite aboard a domestically built rocket next month as part of its space development program. The country officials have said that the homegrown Nuri space launch vehicle, it has no military purposes whatsoever. Moving on. So this update is coming from UAE. The Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center UAE, it has announced that the Rashid rover on board the Hakuto R Mission 1 lunar lander, it is scheduled to land on the lunar surface or on the moon on 25th of April this year at around 8:40 p.m. And with this, we've come to the legal update segment. The first update is coming from the Honorable Supreme Court. So the top court has made suggestions to all courts and tribunals to number paragraphs in all orders and judgments. A bench of the Honorable Apex Court, it has made this observation in a judgment after noting that the impugned judgment of the High Court, it was not numbered paragraph-wise. The name of this particular case is BS Hari Commandant versus the Union of India and others. Moving on to the next update, which is again coming from the Honorable Top Court. So the Supreme Court has held, it has set aside an order passed by the Delhi High Court, which held that since the compensation was not paid to the landowners, the acquisition of land in question, it was lapsed in view of Section 24, subsection 2 of the Land Acquisition Act of 2013. So the Supreme Court has said in this respect that after taking possession, land vests with the state. Any person retaining possession after that is a trespasser. The name of this particular case is Land and Building Department through Secretary and Another versus Atrodevi and others. And this has brought us to the final segment for today. The title of this particular editorial is Atiq Ahmed's son killed, what the Honorable Apex Court and the NHRC have to say as far as the entire issue of encounter killing is concerned. So see, in this particular editorial, we're going to at the very outset have an understanding of what is the issue involved here, which triggered the writing of this article. And then we're going to have an understanding of the guidelines of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court guidelines can broadly be discussed under 3-4 heads. The first would be your having a magisterial inquiry on the police officers who are involved in such sort of an encounter killing. Secondly, lodging of an FIR since a cognizable offence would be made out in case of death or grievous injury to the person so killed or to the person who has sustained injuries. And then this is going to be followed by whether there should be any involvement of the NHRC or not. And as far as the guidelines of the NHRC is concerned, we're going to have an understanding of a letter which was written by the Chief Justice of India back then in 1997 about the instances of the rise in encounter killings highlighted by NGOs. This letter was written to NHRC, in pursuance to which it sought replies from the states and union territories, and it is stated that certain standard procedure is to be followed. There has to be registering of such an information in an appropriate register, and then there should be an impartial inquiry conducted by the state CID in the matter. So let's understand the why of this article at the very outset. So see, gangster turned politician Atiq Ahmed's son Asad and also his aide Ghulam Hussain, they both were killed by a UP Special Task Force. This happened allegedly in Jhansi on Thursday. Now, both the National Human Rights Commission and the Supreme Court have laid down detailed guidelines and also procedure to be followed in such killings in order to prevent the misuse of power, and so that police officers, they don't take the law in their hand and rather they take recourse of the law. Now let's understand the Supreme Court stand on this entire issue. So on September 23, 2014, a bench of the then Chief Justice of India, R.N. Lodha, and also R.F. Nariman, they issued detailed guidelines जहाँ पे उन्होंने 16 pointers enumerate किए थे in order to ensure that in the matters of investigating police encounters, there has to be a procedure which is thorough, effective, and independent, ensuring an investigation which is of this nature. The guidelines, they came in the case of People's Union for Civil Liberties versus the state of Maharashtra, and it mandated the registration of an FIR. The guidelines stated that a magisterial inquiry, it must invariably be held in all cases of death which occur in the course of police action. The next of the kin of deceased must invariably be associated in such inquiry in every case when a complaint is made against the police alleging commission of a criminal act on their part, which makes out a cognizable case of culpable homicide, then an FIR to this effect, it must be registered under the appropriate section of the IPC. The judgment stated, and it further stated or added that such an inquiry which is made under section 176 of the CRPC, it must show whether use of force it was justified and action taken was lawful or not. So essentially Supreme Court ने ये held किया कि एक magisterial inquiry it should invariably be conducted जैसे ही कोई ऐसा encounter killing का instance होता है. And also the court has said that जो family members होते हैं kin of the deceased जिसकी encounter killing has taken place, they should also be involved in the entire process of inquiry. They should be informed as to what is the status of the inquiry and what is going on. And if they happen to make a complaint, that should also be taken note of. Also, अगर कोई cognizable offence disclose होता है, तो FIR must be registered against the defaulting police officials. And following such an inquiry, the Apex Court stated that a report must be sent to the judicial magistrate who has a jurisdiction under section 190 of the CRPC. The guidelines also stated that whenever the police receives intelligence about criminal movements or activities relating to the commission of grave offense, तो उस respect में हमें क्या करना चाहिए? Because it so happens many times that police, in order to justify the instance of encounter killing, वो कह देते हैं कि we had received a tip from somebody that a certain criminal was going from so and so, he was in the process of committing an offense, and while we were chasing the person concerned, this instance of encounter killing, it unfolded. So in order to take note of it, the Supreme Court held that it shall be reduced. जैसे ही आपके पास जो भी information आती है पुलिस के पास, the information shall be reduced into writing in some form, preferably your case diary or in some electronic format. Now following such tip off, अगर कोई encounter हो जाता है या उसमें fire arms की use होती है by the police resulting into death, then of course an FIR has to be forwarded to the court under section 157 without any delay. And the court also stated that provision for an independent investigation into the encounter, they should also be listed. The court said that such provisions which shall be conducted by the CID or the police team to another police station under the supervision of a senior officer at least a level above the head of the police party engaged in the encounter. Further, the court said that ये जो directions है, these directions which were passed in the year 2014, these were law in light of Article 141 of the Indian Constitution, which says that law declared by the Honorable Supreme Court shall be binding on all other courts in the Indian territory. So the Honorable Top Court said that these guidelines, they are a must, they are mandatory, they have to be followed, and they are going to take the effect of law by virtue of Article 141 of the Indian Constitution. And फिर as far as the involvement of NHRC is concerned, Supreme Court ने कहा कि NHRC की involvement is not a necessity जब तक कि impartial investigation already is being conducted against the defaulting police officials. But अगर जब लग रहा है कि there is some sort of lacuna in the investigation itself and it is not completely impartial, then maybe the involvement can be there. However, court ने ये कहा कि as and when such an instance of encounter killing it takes place, then it is mandatory for the officials concerned or others also to get the information in the notice of the NHRC, and that has to be done. Now, under these guidelines, the top court had directed UP to hold an inquiry into the killings of gangster Vikas Dubey, which we all saw during the lockdowns that happened in 2020. And prior to this particular guidelines that came about in 2014, we also had guidelines laid down by the NHRC in the year 1997. In March of 1997, the then Chief Justice of India, he wrote a letter to the National Human Rights Commission, जहाँ पे उन्होंने ये कहा कि certain NGOs and other people, they have approached the court and they have raised concerns about the increase in instances of encounter killings, and therefore the court, the Chief Justice, Honorable Chief Justice, he wrote a letter to the National Human Rights Commission stating, and I quote, under our laws, the police, it has not been conferred any right to take away the life of another person, and if by any act the policeman kills a person, then he commits the offense of culpable homicide, whether amounting to the offense of murder or not, unless it is proved that such killing, it was not an offense under the law, unquote. Now, in light of this particular letter, the NHRC, it asked all the state and union territories to ensure that police follow a set of guidelines in cases where death is caused in the encounters. Now, these include the police's duty to enter all information received about encounter deaths in an appropriate register and provisions for investigation by independent agencies like the state CID. तो NHRC ने स्टेट एंड यूनियन टेरिटरीज को ये कहा कि अगर जब भी कोई ऐसे एनकाउंटर किलिंग के इंस्टेंसेस होते हैं तो यू इमीडिएटली मेक अ मेंशन ऑफ द सेम किसी अप्रोप्रिएट रजिस्टर में, एंड ऑल्सो टू कंडक्ट an inquiry into the entire matter by any impartial agency like the state CID. It further stated, the guidelines stated that information as received, it shall be regarded as sufficient to suspect the commission of a cognizable offense, and immediate steps should be taken to investigate the facts and circumstances leading to the death to ascertain what, if any, offense was committed and by when. So the guidelines stated that the mere fact that there has been an information about about such an encounter having been taken place, this shall be sufficient for the concerned authority to initiate an investigation in the matter as soon as possible. The guidelines also said that the grant of compensation to the deceased's dependents, it may be considered where police officers, they may be convicted and prosecuted after investigation. In 2010 also, these guidelines, they were amended under the then NHRC uh, Chief Justice J.P. Mathur, and this was done to include provisions to register an FIR, magisterial inquiry, and reporting of all death cases to the NHRC by a senior superintendent of police or superintendent of police of the district within 48 hours of such death. So we can figure out from here also कि 2010 में जो guidelines में altercation करी गई थी या amendments लाई गई थी, they 2014 की सुप्रीम कोर्ट की गाइडलाइंस दे आर ऑल्सो इन लाइन विद द 2010 अमेंडमेंट्स, बिकॉज 2010 में भी एसेंशली 3 पॉइंटर्स ही हाईलाइट करे थे कि दैट शुड बी अ रजिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ एन FIR, दैट शुड बी अ मैजिस्टीरियल इंक्वायरी, एंड ऑल्सो दैट जितने भी ऐसे मैटर्स होते हैं दे शुड आउटराइटली और फोर्थविथ be reported to the NHRC. 3 months after the encounter, a second report must be sent to the NHRC, providing information inclusive of the post-mortem report, inquest report, and the inquiry findings. So with this, we've come to an end of the TNA for today. In case you want to get access to the study material and the TNA slides used in this particular video, kindly feel free to join our Telegram channel. This can be joined using the link which is provided in the description, or you may scan the barcode here. These are the point of contacts in case you want to get in touch with LawSikho. Also, the quiz of yesterday's TNA, it is made available in today's description for your kind perusal, and I would request all of you and encourage all of you to attempt the same. And thank you for being with us.